Guys, welcome back to another episode of Dang Shrine. We have a stellar episode today. Our special guest is Cyan. Cyan, why don't you kind of just give yourself a little introduction, tell everyone what you're all about.
What's up, guys? I'm Cyan. I'm on Twitter at Cyan eSports if you want to give me a follow. I do a lot of stuff. I post some memes on Reddit. I post a lot on Reddit. I do some videos. I've been doing some video interviews with a lot of people. I've been doing Please Pause. I've been doing Science Corners, like weekly news updates, opinion pieces, and I write quite a bit now, as much as I can, journalist style for esports. And yeah, I don't know. I guess that's what I'm about.
Sweet. Well, today's show we're doing a little bit different of a format, just based on like what's going on. We haven't had like a whole lot of tournament series going on, so we're actually going to start today's show with just kind of our general news, starting with signings and departures. We had Jake No Regret sign with Nerd Street Gaming, which is pretty cool, actually. I mean, considering that they're not a traditional team, so it's kind of cool to see them sign someone. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like they're a big player when it comes to broadcasting the game, so it's cool that they're trying to get into the player stuff too, and hopefully it's a good fit for No Regret. I know that things didn't work out for him with the last team, so
yeah, hopefully things go better. And then we have.
I think. Whoa, let me jump in there, man. Thoughts?
Let me get his take.
Let's get that hot take.
I don't. This is like a real weird one for me because like No Regret has been pretty vocal about wanting to move into like a more content creating role, and I like his vlogs. I think the vlogs are cool. But is Nerd Street gonna like send him around to tournaments? Is he gonna be a WCS player again? Is that the goal there? Right? Like it seems really unclear. And then is Nerd Street gonna sign more players? It's weird.
Yeah, it does kind of feel weird, but maybe it works because you think about a guy like, he's not necessarily a true like pro gamer. He tried that, it didn't work out, so maybe this is something that has a better, a better fit, a little bit different.
Because I mean, he, like you say, he tried that, it didn't work out. But I mean, he moved to Korea, and I mean, him and Scarlett, they were running the SSL GSL Gauntlet, and after like a couple months, he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna leave Psystorm, and I think I'm gonna focus on content creation." And it's only been like 2 weeks since then. Now he's back signed to a company, like whether it's on a team or whatever, I don't know. So is he trying to be pro again, or is he gonna be content creation?
I mean, we'll see. Either way, I feel like the sponsorship's more like kind of what Ting is doing for Nabe, like where it's more like we're not interested in like a team, like we just kind of want to have like one person, like we're cool with that, like it works for us, kind of thing. Like we'll just see where it goes. We're not really investing like a huge amount into that, and we'll just see what happens.
I think it makes sense from a sponsorship point of view because he's one of those guys that's maybe, although not a ton of results, like really well known within the community that you sponsor, and it makes sense for the company. So, and if he doesn't do just gaming,
so
yeah, there you go.
So that does kind of work. Next, we have kind of a breaking thing. I mean, it won't be breaking by the time this posts, but it's right now. It's technically Wednesday night, and 20 minutes ago or so, we found out that Polt is leaving Team Envious to go back to Korea to do his military service. And it sounds like it's not really his choice, so I don't know how he feels about it, but he's doing it. So, Polt, Godspeed, good luck, and I don't know, be safe, I guess.
Yeah, press F. That's all I got to say about that one.
Yeah. Respect.
I mean, it's something you got to do. It's something that we deal with a lot for the good Korean players. So it's like, what do you do? It's just part of life, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you put it off for already a couple years. So I mean, I know that at some point you just have to do it. Like we know DRG just left for his service. So and we're actually starting to see like that turnaround because now we're starting to see everyone. Some of the old players that left come back like Golden and stuff. So it's kind of interesting.
I think he timed this out perfectly for StarCraft 3. So you'll know that when his military service finishes, that's when Blizzard will be releasing the next version of StarCraft.
We can only hope. Really, we can only hope for that.
StarCraft 3 is actually just going to be the StarCrafts mod.
I'm okay with that.
Let's go ahead and just move into that then. Like, I want to throw out some damn hype for this StarCrafts mod because if you guys out there haven't played it, make sure you go onto StarCraft. It'll be like the first thing you see
in arcade.
Yeah. Like on the main page even, you can just click right into it and play it, and it is a lot of fun. Like, I just can't like speak highly enough about this. Awesome job by what's the name of the guy who does that? Carbot. Like, what's his real name? Whatever. Excellent job by him.
You put me on the spot, but everyone knows Carbot. So
right.
Carbot.
I mean, he's been working on this stuff for what, like 2 years?
Something like that. Some like ridiculous amount of time. Like I saw somewhere like an article like it costs like over like $100,000 to like pull this off.
It was all well, not all crowdfunded, I assume, but they did go through a crowdfunding process, which is like
Yeah.
this is such a huge success story for the
Yeah.
StarCraft community. When it's like everything is all the game's dying and everything's terrible all the time. Like that's the big community thing lately. But like the StarCrafts mod is this perfect thing that's coming out now in the year 6 of StarCraft 2's life, and it was community crowdfunded, and it's made by a person who became famous on the internet purely from StarCraft and from doing StarCraft things. It's like, wow, can we just like give ourselves one of those, please?
No,
Can we just appreciate this?
It's like a perfect
thing?
representation of what the StarCraft community is and how passionate people are about this. Like, and it wasn't one of these things where it was like a GoFundMe and donate once. It's like people who are donating per content creation, like monthly sort of a thing, which is kind of frustrating because I kind of just wanted to throw some money at Carbot and be like, here's some money. Maybe if I see him at BlizzCon, I'll just give him like,
here's $20. Thanks.
$20 and buy him a 6-pack or something. I don't know, because this damn game is really cool.
He did just have a baby, so he could probably use all the money he can get right now.
Right? But he put out a hell of a game. Like, if you guys haven't played this, it's fun. It reminds me a lot of like Zelda Wind Waker, that really fun cartoony graphic style. But it's literally the exact same game. And I'm interested to see like if it has the ability to just be, I think the problem is the terrain, but to play the game like that, I think that's what everybody's talking about right now because it brings people into it. Like, you can have a casual player play the game that way.
Yeah, I think it definitely also appeals to the more casual players to bring them kind of back into the competitive side. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I had some of my friends were messaging me, being like, "Hey, look at this thing that exists." And I'm like, "Yeah, do you want to go play it?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that only lasts so long though because I was on there with my clanmates last night doing 3v3s and doing cyclone rushes and all the horrible, disgusting things. Those people will be off quickly.
Well, here's the thing. I would like to see them introduce a mode so that I can play that like just as my StarCraft. If I want to play it, like that's all I see. Kind of like what we saw with like Civil War, like on Base Trade. Like they see the regular game, but I see StarCraft.
Exactly.
StarCraft. Like that's what I want to play. And then I would also like to see Blizzard introduce StarCraft Kids, where it's just that and like it's just for kids.
Maybe just like one unit or something.
That's like that's the StarCraft starter pack. That's how you get your kids on it. Like that's how like if you remember like back in the day, like when DJ was teaching Miniweed how to play, like it would have been so much cooler if he could have like, oh, we'll just load in StarCraft Kitty mode and this is what it is. It's all a little cutesy and stuff, like not scary Zerg units. Like it's so much easier to fend off a Ling Rush when you're like, oh, look how adorable they are.
Yeah.
Instead of like, oh my god, they're so scary.
Like when you die to a Ling Rush in Carbot's mod, you're not even mad. You're just like, oh, this is awesome.
Sure, there's no ladder anxiety with Carbots. It would totally eliminate that. Everyone would have a much better mentality.
No, and the cool thing about this is, if you guys are interested in this mod, remember that StarCraft is a game that you can download for free. You can play all the arcade for free. So anybody who wants to play the Carbots mod can download it and play. So make sure to spread the word. If you got some buddies who are casually interested, show them this version of it first.
Yeah, I'd like to see Idris start playing again and watch him play the Carbots mod. I think that would be really fun.
All right, so moving on.
So for tournament series, we haven't had like a whole lot go on. I mean, the one we really want to cover was WESG, and we had. Well, was this? It was what, the European one, correct? The European qualifier.
Yeah, so this tournament had like a ton of different players from different regions, and this seems like the main aspect of it because it is the European players that they're so good. But it took place over the course of, I believe, last week and the weekend. And there was some good money at stake too, and some cool players that we haven't seen in a while. Did you guys get a chance to catch any of these games? Anything stand out to you?
I mean, I watched just like very, very, very few of them. I mean, I more want to just bring the general attention to it to make sure that it's getting as much prop as it should. I know that there were quite a few actual good games. Like there was some like ass whoopings, so like you might want to go back like Hearthstone being Serral 3-0 and then Nerchio whooping Hearthstone 3-0. So like there was some like ass kickings to watch. So there's definitely some good games to go back and look at. In the qualifiers, if you can find it, there was a really funny game that Lily Cannon played where like he had these liberators and they were like locked behind the air blockers on New Gettysburg, and they just sat there and died to like one stalker. It was really funny. So I don't know.
And for WSG, it's like a really weird thing where they're doing what World Cyber Games did so many years ago, you know, and they're working really hard to recreate that. And this is all run by Alibaba, which is
yeah,
a Chinese company who's investing like lots of money into esports, and I don't know what their goals are, but at least for this season of WSG, unless it really picks up like really soon, and for the finals, I don't think they're making their money back. I don't think there's even like a slim margin between money lost and money gained.
Yeah.
Because, like, well, for Counter-Strike and for Dota, the team games, those are really hard to run national qualifiers for because all the professional teams are, you know, all kinds of nationalities on the one team.
yeah.
And then, like, Hearthstone is kind of caving in on itself, apparently, the scene. And then StarCraft, not many people were talking about WSG and are still not talking about WSG, which is unfortunate because, you know, we're always crying about, something's wrong or whatever.
There's not enough content, right?
Right.
Yeah, like there's been a ton of content out there, and that was my thing I wanted to point out with this too, is that this was a really good tournament. Like, there were really good games, and you know, it was on, and didn't get, I think, I want to say it was decent viewership, but for how big of a tournament this was and how much money there was, I think I agree with you that maybe not as much viewership as you'd like.
I think the other problem with it though is it like ran during the week, so like you were running into a problem with like American viewership during the week with that. Like, I was at work when a lot of this was going on.
Well, actually, you know what? No, hold on. In WCS like 2014, WCS Studio League, when that was running, the highest numbers were coming in for WCS Europe, which was in a time zone like prime time for EU and then afternoon for the Americas.
Yeah.
For some strange reason, that's like when most people tuned in. Yeah. And also, just to like quickly tag on to the idea that it's not doing great for viewership, Alibaba will almost certainly do this again next year. They'll take the loss that you would expect to eat in your first season of anything, and then they'll roll with it. But for us as StarCraft fans, I think it's really important that we like try our best to show our support and try and put it out there and tune into the StarCraft side, because if we want them to have StarCraft at the next year instead of, you know, oh, it's just not worth it for us to have StarCraft, Hearthstone, CS:GO, Dota, and whatever else, then, you know, we should really try and support these guys.
No, that's what I was gonna say. Is there were really good games here, and it was cool to see. Part of what was cool about it is like people that we haven't seen, you know, do that well in a while. Like Beastie Cutie throwing out some really cool builds. I mean, that's a guy that you haven't seen, I think, since maybe I remember him more in the Heart of the Swarm scene, and he ended up placing, I think, 3rd in there overall. And that was kind of cool for me. Like, he was a lot of Zergs, but Beastie, if you're interested in going out and checking out those VODs, if you're a Terran player, he had some really cool, different stuff. It wasn't all the Reapers that we saw with the King of the North. It was, you know, a little bit of different style, and he played really well. I thought that was the impressive takeaway.
He was around in early Legacy of the Void, and he's been like one of those real.
I mean, he's been around since Wings.
Yeah. I mean, he's
exactly.
He's always on that peripheral. It's like, oh man, people to keep your eye on, people who might do good things in the future. And he's been at like the top of that and the bottom of that and off of that, but he's never really hit his stride. So, you know, hopefully maybe this is an indication that he's destined for great things again.
I mean, it definitely could be. I think, you know, someone else that was interesting that was there that we saw play competitively was DeMuslim. I feel like Ben hasn't played super competitively as of late. Like, he's been streaming a lot and stuff, but I feel like we haven't seen him. But I feel like he's getting back into it, actually. Like, he's like, oh, like, I forgot how much fun I have at these. Like, I might attend more of these. Like, I would really like to see more DeMuslim be there. Like, I mean,
he's a good ladder player too, you know.
Well, we've seen him like at tournaments and stuff in a caster capacity too, but like he's still such a good player. It's kind of like Roddy. Like, Roddy's actually super good. Like, he will still take games off of top GM players, you know, but he's like way happier just like casting and stuff than competing in like tournaments like that.
Yeah.
With DeMuslim, just really quickly there, I don't remember if it was when he left Euronics or not, but he had a blog post pretty recently talking about how badly he wants to go back to pro play and how that's a goal of his. So, you know, you're probably going to get to see your wish and see more of him in tournaments.
No, he plays well. If you check out his stream, he's always out there, you know, grinding it and trying really hard and talking about what he did well, what he didn't do well, going over replays and stuff. But just kind of tie it back to this WESG is that I thought Namshire played really well. And the same thing with one of those names that you're talking about that's on the periphery that you kind of remember a little bit more from earlier days of StarCraft. So bringing it back and representing, I thought he played really well and kind of cool. You know, even though we're, you know, Protoss friendly on this show, a little bit, you know, less Protoss in this tournament. So it was a lot of Zergs, a lot of Terrans. Are you Protoss too, Cyan?
No, he's Zerg.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
good, good.
yeah.
We got to mix it up a little bit here. We always have Protoss guests, so
Like literally every guest we've had on has been Protoss so far.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Just by-
wow, I'm
ju-
honored then.
Just by
Yeah.
chance, really.
First
I mean,
real StarCraft player here.
it wasn't. Well, hey, you take that up with Fear Dragon and Migraine, man. You can show match both of them and see what happens.
That's right.
Diamond 3 Zerg.
But yeah. So moving on. I mean, yeah, we saw, like I said, we saw some good games. So you guys, let's make sure we tune into those. Let's give them support.
Yeah.
If we want to keep the community alive.
And I want to throw out one thing to do, is make sure you watch those VODs. But one thing is that these things are hard to find. They're not really accessible that well on YouTube. They're not organized that well, but they are available on Twitch. So if you want to watch them that way, it's like starladder_SC2 to check out those VODs for WESG. And again, this isn't the final tournament. There'll be more games upcoming for WESG. So keep your eyes peeled for the continuation of this tournament.
Yeah. The next thing we wanted to jump into is kind of talking investments in esports. We've recently seen, Team Liquid's controlling assets being sold to Magic Johnson and the owner of like Golden State Warriors and stuff. So very cool
W's.
to see some investment work. Do you guys have any opinions on the Team Liquid signing itself, the Team Liquid?
Yeah, Cyan,
itself?
We've talked about this, but you weren't here, so what do you think about this?
I think that this is completely like, God, I started watching competitive video games. I started watching StarCraft like 5 years ago now, like end of 2011, very, very end of 2011, so like 4 years. And it's so crazy, man. Like, so an important part too is it's not just TL, but Dignitas and one of the LCS teams, Energy, I think it was Energy. They were also bought out by a professional sports team, organization, the 76ers, Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah.
Apparently, I read this somewhere. Apparently what happened was somebody gave a presentation to the NBA executives at some point, like in the past, like recent history. Whoever that was, man, give them a cookie, because evidently did an amazing job.
Definitely.
And this is, God, I could actually talk about how cool this is for hours, in my opinion, like, it's just the one thing for me that I'll say here is, like, Team Liquid is the leader for esports. They're the leader in the industry right now. I talked about this on Please Pause, but I'll say it again here. With this deal here, with this massive, massive deal here, and also the organizing of PEA, isn't it cool that this StarCraft Brood War fan community from way back in the day has built itself up to be this absolute monolith of esports and really carrying the whole community and the whole scene into the future? Like, God, that's so hype.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that's definitely cool. I mean, I like where this, that has the potential to go. I mean, kind of how I see it is I kind of see Team Liquid being, it's almost like the ESPN of esports. Like, it's like essentially, if I want to know like what's going on in sports, I'll either check the main league site itself or I'll go to ESPN. Whereas for anything esports that I'm interested in, it's Team Liquid.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, Cyan, that it's like not something that was driven to be a big company, that it was this kind of idea like, hey, I want to watch, here's a thing for the community to get together and, group together all the Brood War things, and it's become this, really personalized, like, conglomeration of all of what's going on with the Team Liquid calendars, what a person who enjoys esports kind of lives by. And it's cool to see this big money coming in, and to kind of tie this back in with the basketball thing. I think it's really cool because basketball, there's all sports make a ton of money, right? It's just the way it goes, all pro sports in America. But basketball is one of these ones that's really growing. So you get these people who are investing in it that are very forward thinking, taking a lot of risk. And I think that's what, this idea of money going into esports is. It's kind of a risky thing. There's a huge potential to make a ton of money, but it's kind of a risky investment. And I think it ties into our next topic with this, but it's something that a person who would invest in basketball might be more interested in. So it's cool that people are putting the money there. It's cool that this happened for Team Liquid because it's such a great, I like the Goober Group, and I think that they'll bring Team Liquid to a better place. But it's kind of interesting the way that the money goes, and to follow it and see, who ends up investing in what.
I mean,
Just to Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just like really quickly to tag in there. I totally agree with you. Like, it's cool that the Gruber Group and these guys have enough faith in esports to put any money at all in it. But they're not just basketball guys, and I think it's important to recognize that.
No.
The people who actually invest the money, they're basketball owners. They own the White Sox. They own the Golden State Warriors. They own the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
Like, those are really, really big, huge teams. But
It's
they
sports
also
franchises.
own arena football teams.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's sports franchises overall. They own a golf club, I think, if that's correct, if I remember correctly. Like, they do own other projects that aren't as successful as an NBA team. Like, it's not quite, Team Liquid got bought by, real multi-million-dollar sports owners, so we've made it now. There's still work to be done.
Yeah.
This is just really encouraging.
No, it is, and I think it's a good point that Team Liquid's a really solid. It's not some kind of like wishy-washy thing. It's a well-established thing too.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, and I'll hit into that here as we go into our next topic. Because we're talking about like basketball owners. Well, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks is saying that he's not convinced in investing in esports. It's saying it might be too risky due to player turnover and burnout. I really feel like Mark has a good point, like when he says that, because we do see a pretty high turnover rate depending on like which esports you're talking about. But there is, like it or not, like when you sign an NFL player, I mean he's in the league for anywhere between like 7 to 12 years, and NBA players even longer. And I think the average stint of an esport player is probably maybe like 4 to 5. Yep. So it's a lot shorter of a lifespan when it comes to that thing. So I kind of see where he comes from. On the flip side of that, I feel like one of the main reasons that's a thing is because players are not properly represented. What organized sports has right now that esports does not is a union organization to work for them to make sure that their conditions are being met, they're being paid properly, because we've had a lot of issues with money, which I know we'll talk about here later. We've had issues with contracts, and the list goes on, and all these things they provide for the players themselves to make sure that everything is being structured and it's on the up and up. And I think that's something that needs to be implemented. But I feel like the biggest challenge with that is the number of esports, and also how many teams there are, which countries they're from. And the last thing I'll say is I feel like it's really the only solution is you kind of have to have an organization similar to what the Olympics is. So everyone competes in the Olympics, correct, from all these different countries. The Olympics has their set of rules that if you want to compete in it, you have to follow by those rules. So I feel like almost every game has to have like their own governing committee, if you will, to set forth like what rules and what you need to do for that, basically.
That's interesting. Zili, do you want to tag in there?
To me, that's like logistics, and that's something that to me it's like a lot of these sports, and other things have been around for a long time. These unions have been created. There's kind of establishments, there's testings, what have you, that go about them. I think that esports has not been around that long, and it's going to take a while for that to get there. But in my opinion, that's not the big problem here. I think that'll happen with time, and I think that that's a matter of money. Like if the money's there, I think that there'll be unions, right? And I know that that's something that a lot of the people in the community have said for a long time is, why aren't there unions? These people are being underrepresented. Well, whether we're talking about sports, we're talking about, a road on the street not getting built. We're talking about, politics type stuff. It all comes down to money. Yeah. So to me, it's about like, how much money is going into the scene, how much money are people willing to invest in it from an advertiser standpoint. And then like, how well organized is it, and a lot of the problems that people are talking about with this, comparing it to athletes train their whole lives, since they're young. And in some sports, some instances, like it's kind of like that for esports. People play games a long time, but it's not quite the same level of dedication. And I don't think there's quite the commitment. There's not the contracts. So there's not this level of commitment from the players. And then in terms of, the money that's going in from the teams, it's not quite there like it is with, owners. There's not established,
right.
We don't have the, Washington Redskins of esports. It's different, right?
Right. I mean, I feel like from an go ahead.
Sorry. So for me, in talking about like, it's not a good idea to invest in esports because of player turnover and player burnout. I don't think that's so much like a salary issue or anything necessarily. Like the thing for esports, like the reason why we see so many people come up really big in their high school years, in their late teens, and then kind of die off the closer they get to their mid 20s or their late 20s. I mean, it's very rare to see an esports professional doing well in their 30s. I think that's like almost unheard of.
It's a good point.
Unless you play CS:GO.
Is that a thing in CS:GO?
Yeah, they have a lot of old players.
Really? Okay. So
I mean, I can't name any, but being that community's been around that long, like, yeah, there's definitely people there that have been there for fucking ever.
So I think that kind of supports where I'm going with this, because if you're playing StarCraft 2 professionally, you can't really live the rest of your life on that. Like at some point, there will be a definitive point where StarCraft 2 isn't an RTS game. Like it's not the RTS game, and people will play something else. So, like, but that aside, with the current frame of things, there's very like slim potential that as a pro player who's not performing at the very best in the world, you can make your living on that. So there are really only a few years where you get to dedicate yourself full time before you say, okay, well, I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go cast, I'm going to go host events, or I'm going to go to school. You know, another job, go to school. Like, and then you're not playing full time anymore. You don't get to dedicate yourself fully, right, to training and whatnot. So at that point, your skill starts to fall off. As opposed to sports, like both you guys kind of touched on, if you're playing football, you get 12 years out of that person, generally, right?
Yeah.
But that person's life is football. They play football, you know, and they have people around them to help them play football. So it's a really different thing, in my opinion. And I think that most of the player turnover is because of the infrastructure right now, and just the way that esports works, where it's a thing for a couple years, and then it's a hobby, and then you can't compete, so you leave. I think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, I mean that you bring up a good point. That being said, we hit the 10-minute mark here, so we need to get into our last topic here. We want to talk about TCM, and since you're kind of the authority on that right now, that situation with Sulky, why don't you kind of take the floor here, Cyan?
Okay, 9 minutes 30. Okay, so TCM was Team Cooler Master. Sulky went on a stream, a Brood War Pro players stream in September, and said, you know, he was owed money, he was owed salary. He was really frustrated, pretty done with StarCraft 2. And from that, it became an article on Naver, and then it spilled into the foreign scene on Team Liquid mostly. And there were a lot of community misconceptions going around. There was a lot of debate and hot topics. So I reached out to Pooey Dude on Twitter, who I knew was a former TCM player manager, and his name's Pooey, is like a caster, Pughy.
Okay.
Maybe seen him around, but I knew that he was the former TCM player manager, so I reached out to him on Twitter, and I was like, hey, do you know anything about this? We talked very briefly, and I was like, hey, can you give me the contact info for this person, this person, this person? It was like all the players and their more recent player manager, who's Pusik is his name. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening is I got in touch with Myungsik, who very, very eagerly put me in touch with Pusik. Pusik luckily speaks a little bit of English, so we talked for a while, and I asked him a ton of questions, and I said, okay, look, why don't we, because at the point in time during the day, it was like, it would have been 5 a.m. for him, or something ridiculous like that. I was like, listen, let me have a real think on this, let me write up a ton of questions for you, and I'll send those to you, you can answer those, and I'll write a piece on this, you know, because some of the things that were going around, it's not how it actually went down. Like, on the drop, Penguin talked about how a lot of Koreans, they don't read their contracts, so Sulky may very well have done something to void his contract and may not be owed money at all. That's not true. Pusik was very, very adamant that Sulky understood his contract. Pusik acts as a kind of an agent, and I believe that his English comprehension is enough that he would understand a contract. And also, Sulky's been around a long time, right?
Yeah.
So that's not really true. Another misconception is like, oh, this is just another 2-bit know-nothing new team that came up in 2014 and screwed players over. That's really not true. TCM was around for many years. It's like since 2005, I think. Yeah. Originally, they were under the name Team Cooler Master, like Cooler Master the peripherals.
Yeah.
They had a strong presence, a really strong presence in Call of Duty. They had presence in League of Legends, Halo, a lot of different games, guys. And they were supposed to be a reputable organization. They were like the forefront of British professional esports. And what happened was one day in March, they just completely cut off contact after already having slim to no contact and having these monetary disputes with their players. So they cut off contact, and then in July, they filed for formal corporation dissolution, which you can all find online thanks to like whatever system is in place in the UK.
Right.
And they've literally just vanished. And there's basically no hope that Sulky's going to see his money that he's owed for salary and other things. And it's not just Sulky; it's also the Call of Duty players. They're allegedly owed thousands salary and from prize winnings. And these guys just vanished from the face of the earth. It's these two guys, Jim McGuire and Chris Walker, somebody Walker.
Yeah, that's right. I think.
Yeah, and it sucks. It's this big underscoring thing that shows that like it doesn't need to be a small team. It doesn't need to be a no-name player. It can still happen. You can know what's in your contract. You can still get burned, and it sucks.
It's kind of the shakiness of it's kind of the shakiness of esports. Like it's like one of those things. Like it's kind of like a risk. Like regardless of the team's size, it's still kind of a risk. Like whether or not like you don't know how things are going to turn out. So I mean, it's a shitty situation. I don't want that to happen to Sulky. I mean, he's an awesome player, and it's disappointing that TCM chose to do things the way that they did. Really.
And one other thing to say about this is that it's like it's not necessarily a esports thing. This maybe isn't thinking about esports. It's like somebody got screwed. I know at jobs I've had coworkers that got screwed. I've never gotten screwed quite like this, but this is something that does happen. There's a lot more news about it when it comes to esports. So
yeah, it could be a startup company. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be esports. I mean, these things can happen really to anyone, really.
But like you're saying, this is a big company. It's unfortunate that it did happen, but it's at the end of the company's life. They're going under. They don't have enough money. But it sucks for Sulky because Sulky is one of these guys that's been around. And it sucks when you see somebody that's a big name like that not getting paid. It has a bad look. So, shame on TCM, I guess.
I think one of the most unfortunate things is that it would be one thing almost if it just was an issue with payment. They literally didn't tell anybody that there was A, an issue, and B, they were closing.
Yeah, they just
Nobody knew.
They just like left town basically. Like, oh, see ya.
Yeah, and now Sulky apparently is so disillusioned and hurt. Sulky is apparently basically just retired.
Yeah.
That's what Pusik told me. He's just gonna play whatever he wants. He's not gonna play anything like StarCraft professionally, and he's just gonna wait until his military time's up. Which sucks. That's a tragic end for a titan of StarCraft.
Yeah,
definitely. I wish him all the best, and I really hope that something can be met. I mean, I know they really don't have a lot of legal avenue to even pursue these guys, basically, because they formally closed it. But I hope something comes of it. I hope we can get closure, and I hope we can move on.
And if you guys want to check out this article, that is on Reddit. So if you search for what's the keyword you should search for here, Cyan?
You have it posted to a website.
If you went to my Twitter, you would find it.
There you go.
If you went to esportsheaven.com, or if you go to twitter.com/CyanEsports, you'll find it on either one of those, depending on when you watch this episode. I mean, it might be a little farther down in my Twitter. But the thing that Kusick and Sulky, I didn't have personal interaction with Sulky, but the thing that those guys want is just to kind of spread the story, and hopefully this doesn't happen, and hopefully maybe they can get something out of this, but they just want to spread the story through the Western scene as much as the...
It's kind of like a PSA, like,
yeah,
public service announcement of, hey, this shit happens, it's real.
Sulky got dirty dogged by TCM, everybody.
We gotta look out for these people. Well, man, it was great having you on. I think we brought a lot to the episode. It was good to have someone who has a lot of insight into something very specifically, and I think that this is something that really needed to be brought up to the community. I think it really needed to be elaborated on, because
it's cool for me because we talk a lot about tournaments, and it's interesting to talk about something a little bit different. I don't know much about the esports scene when it comes to the money, so it's cool to have somebody who is an expert and contributes so much. Yeah, I know it's your jam, so it's cool to bring on the expert to talk about the money in StarCraft. So, if we ever do, maybe we should talk about it again sometime. We have a few episodes before BlizzCon, so maybe we'll do it again, huh?
I'd love that. Love it. Thanks a lot for bringing me on, guys. If I can quickly plug my Twitter. And
yes, plug it all hard.
If you guys don't mind, if you see this and you like me and stuff, and Twitter.com/CyanEsports, YouTube.com/CyanEsports, Twitch TV/CyanEsports, all Cyan Esports, man, one word. I had a lot of fun. I hope I didn't talk over speak my part at any point.
No, man, definitely not. Well, guys, that'll do it for us today. Be sure to follow us at Dangshrine on Twitter. Hit the subscribe button. That helps. If you like the videos, comment. It really does help. We appreciate everything that the community does for us.
Yeah.
And we're also on SoundCloud. You can search Dangshrine and follow us on SoundCloud if you like just the straight audio files.
That's right.
Look forward to next week's show. I can't spoil who we have on for guests, but it's a pretty big name. So kind of just a little foreshadowing for next week. I think you guys will like who we have. So
Teaser.
yeah, till then, take care, and thanks for watching.
Take it easy, fellas.